started 20 years ago with the thesis that software would move from on-premise to the cloud.
Okay.
That thesis largely worked, right? So the very first investment for us in '04 was in Salesforce. We've been investing in all sorts of enterprise software companies like Zoom ever since. And we think that this AI wave is very similar to the wave of on-prem to the cloud.
Okay.
So just like that was transformational for tech, we think this will be transformational. We're very bullish, and we're very focused on how we can help B2B software companies make that transition.
But should we have a fast food company talking about AI on our quarterly earnings conference call?
I think it's real, right? Like there's so much hysteria. And so you have to cut through all the crap to figure out what's real. But like in the case of fast food, the idea of using this to help augment the people doing the drive-thrus and make drive-thrus more efficient, like that's very real. Voice recognition technology is real. So I think what may be in danger is I think a lot of tech companies, public companies over the past 6 months have gotten so excited they may have overcommitted, overpromised on what they can do with AI in the near term. So we may be, near term negative, but I think over the long run this thing's going to work.
Dude, think about, you don't want a high school, like a stoner that you hired for your drive-through to be like, do you want fries with that? He's not going to be enthusiastic about it. He's not going to remember to ask every time. Like AI can be better at upselling in the drive-through. I think
stoners are pretty good at upselling though. I feel like they're hungry.
True, so like, man, these fries are so good.
Exactly. All right, so what's the next? I want to say what's the next because I don't even know where the starting point is. But
NVIDIA is the only one that we really know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Microsoft, okay, with OpenAI, but where do you invest? I mean, you're not looking solely at public markets, so you have a much better view of what the roots are down underground. What are you looking at?
So the way I'd think about it is like there's different layers to the AI stuff. There's NVIDIA, which is at the base layer, right? It's the actual chips that are helping power this. Then there's the foundational models. This is OpenAI, and Microsoft's developing their own in addition to OpenAI, and there's a bunch of others. And then there's the application layer. And that's the stuff we're most excited about, which is what do you do with this stuff once it's built, right? You don't just build it for the sake of building it, but how can you make the stoner dude more effective at taking your order? How can you help doctors treat patients more effectively? How can you help lawyers to go through contracts more effectively? So we're investing in companies that do all that stuff aided by AI.
So, all right, now given it feels like we're in the top of the first inning for AI.
Yeah.
Where are you guys looking, and what types of deals are you guys looking at?
Yeah, for sure. So we're seeing a lot of activity in vertical specific AI solutions. And this actually mirrors software. So in the first wave of cloud technology, horizontal SaaS was the thing. So Salesforce, Workday, et cetera. In the second wave, it was vertical SaaS, or what we at Emergence call industry cloud. These are companies like Viva Systems, which is a $30 billion public company selling into the pharmaceutical industry. The same thing is starting to happen in AI, where you're taking this technology and instead of just trying to broadly apply it anywhere, you're actually choosing a specific job to be done, and you're having it solve that problem. So we have invested in companies, as I said, that use this technology to help lawyers draft contracts better. So the idea is you can, as you're writing a contract, say, hey, help me make this clause mutual, and it will use AI to help draft that. We've invested in companies that help doctors communicate with insurance companies and write the letters to get approvals for different treatments. A company called Doximity that does that. So that kind of concept we think is going to be really powerful. The question is, what are the jobs to be done for which this technology is most applicable in the near term?
And what are the data sets that they use to train on? Is that like a sticky issue? Because recently Elon Musk came out with his competitor to OpenAI, Grok. And apparently it's supposed to use real-time
Twitter data.
Yeah. I didn't even know they could do that without breaking certain, privacy clauses. Maybe they don't mind. But, I think of Google, they have so much data, at their fingertips. Can they use all that?
So I think the larger companies are the ones that have to be the most conservative about this, which is kind of interesting, actually. Like in many ways, those are the folks that have the most to lose. And so startups, I think, can be more innovative on this front. They can, find different sets of data and actually kind of outmaneuver some of the incumbents. There's a real innovator's dilemma problem for the incumbents here, right? If you're Google, if you're Salesforce, if you're one of these established public companies, you have a lot to lose in this from a legal perspective. You also, if you drastically try to change your UX, your user interface, let's say doing a chat-based interface is better than doing the traditional interface, you could piss off a lot of your existing users. So there's risk there. There's also risk on business models. I think a lot of these technologies are starting to think about how do I charge not on a per seat basis or usage basis, but actually on an outcomes basis. Because this technology actually can help you process contracts more quickly or cure patients more quickly or what have you. What if you could start actually charging on that basis, which would be disruptive to the incumbent? So as a startup investor perspective, which is what I'm focused on, I'm spending a lot of time thinking about what are the advantages a startup has over the incumbent in this new era.
How much incremental capex. If I just look at the macro tech capex numbers I get from IDC or whatever, and I see some of these big growth rates, how much of that do you think is incremental AI, or maybe taking from some other bucket and putting it into AI? I don't know how much to think about as how much is incremental.
It's a really good question. I think some of it will actually come from labor. Right? So if you had hired a consulting firm before to help you implement some new technology, and you had a big budget for that consulting firm, it's very possible that you can use AI to help you implement this technology more effectively, and so you don't need to spend as much on consulting firms.
Interesting.
Which actually brings me to another point I've been reflecting on, which is we thought that it was like the stoner dude that was going to be most at risk in this age of AI, that it was a lot of the kind of more blue collar workers, the janitors, the nannies, et cetera. What's happened with this past year of AI is it seems like white collar workers are actually the ones that may have more infringement upon their daily work.
Yeah.
And as a result, they're the ones who have to probably get up to speed faster on how to make use of this technology to augment what they do. Otherwise, they may fall by the wayside.
I always think about this as well, the jobs at risk, but what will be created?
Yeah.
Because every time there's a technological wave or an industrial wave, it does knock out a whole group of jobs, but it also creates so many more.
Totally.
So what's going to be created here?
Yeah.
It's not just more coders, right? Please
No,
say it's not more coders.
No, in some ways we may have different types of coders in the sense that you may not need to know as much code because the AI can help you do it. So you'll have probably more of a democratization, so there'll be more people that code, but you may have less people that do it as their full-time job. I do think like in the near term, figuring out how to implement this technology in existing tech stacks is something that everyone's figuring out real time. Remember, like this ChatGPT thing, it's a year old. Like we've aged a ton in a year. So what's it going to look like in a year or 2 years from now? So I think the world will look different and jobs will look very different.